All right, so we are going to talk about the Venus retrograde cycle. I want to cover some of the mysteries of Venus and how these are going to be coming up, affecting our love life, relationship, what we value, and look at the signs that are most affected and just give you a few tools, a few of the Venus mystery tools. So Venus is going to station retrograde on the 12th of May at 21 degrees of Gemini. So you want to look at your chart, and you don't need to do this because you'll feel the material when I talk about it. But Venus is retrograding at 21 degrees Gemini. The shadow phase started on April 9th. So what the shadow phase is so when Venus was at 5 degrees Gemini, tracking all the way through to 21, this is the beginning shadow phase. So as Venus goes retrograde, it's going to retrograde all the way back to 5 degrees Gemini, and then it's going to come back forward all the way till it gets to 21 again. We call this the post shadow, and that post shadow is on the 29th of July. So this is just a really long phase that we're going to be going through with our Venus material. So I find it helpful and useful to understand some of the things that might be coming up, some of the things that have started coming up for you since April 9th around your love life, the things that you value, romance. So this is like human love as opposed to that big infinite love that we feel for creatures that, you can let a bird hop around with a broken wing. You care and you want to. This is a different love. This is like the love that is universal. And Venus love is more like the feeling of longing and attraction and wanting to be in relation in ways that gratify our senses, ways that feel good to our senses. So I call this sense-oriented relationships because it is mostly with people, but it's also with food. Taurus and Venus are very much alike. And so it's like the pleasurable things, food and drink, things that feel good. Sense pleasures or sense-oriented relationships. So it can also, it's intimacy, intimacy with nature when you go and you're sitting with plants and you feel love and you feel drawn to them, and you have this relationship with a lot of things that your senses can respond with. So you're having, intimacy in some way. So since April 9th, I think it would be helpful to see what kinds of things started happening in your life around sensual pleasure and your relationships to sense-oriented things. Okay, so Venus in Gemini. So for this retrograde, the material that this is around, because it's in Gemini, talking, flirting, the innocence of flirtation. That's a topic for Gemini Venus. And really, whenever people talk about Venus, it seems like it's a really great thing. It's like beauty, pleasure, art, all these wonderful things about being human that we get to experience. And this can also be very tricky territory. And I'm going to tell you why. Because humans will do almost anything to have their sensual needs met, or their longing, their attraction for, what that feeling that we have. We will do almost anything to have the sense pleasures, those things that bring sense pleasure. We will do almost anything to get that. And what I'm, thinking of now is like to kiss somebody, to make out, to have sex with them. We will most usually say or do anything to get that, to have that happen. And this is not, just men or just women or it's like human nature. And this is what I really hope gets to be looked at during the Gemini retrograde, because Gemini is not shy, and we're more able to be expressive in creative ways, and it's amusement and fun. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to open up and talk more freely about this topic of being transparent, being honest. And so here we go. Let's get into Venus on this level of sense gratification. And when we meet somebody that we like, or, okay, I like you. And then from what my experience is, and of course, who knows? I think this is pretty across the board, but we'll kind of like get to know the person and then sort of almost try to, okay, yeah, I'm like, this is probably a me thing more than an everybody thing, but you'll kind of bend a lot of different ways to get with that person that you like, that you're interested in, because you want to, you want it to go good. You want to be able to get closer to that person and have that sensual experience. You want to mesh and blend in with that person and get close and have intimacy. So instead of just molding ourselves and saying whatever we think that they want to hear, and I don't think this happens consciously all the time. I think it's like we meet the person and we already have some rapport. There's already something in common. And then we'll sort of just keep seeing where we can compromise so that we can get together. And if we do that, say, one of my opening questions is when I date somebody, or like a first date question, what is your relationship material like? Like, what is your thing? Are you polyamorous? Are you monogamous? Are you into being open in relationships? Do you want to just have a partner, or do you want to date around, or like what are you going for? What's your aim here? And I think that that's a very good way to start to get to know somebody. And I can tell when the person is kind of like saying what they think I want to hear. And oftentimes, honestly, I think people really don't know. I think they don't really know. They're waiting till they meet somebody else and they're like, well, let's just see what we can do together. And I think there are some pros and cons to that. But ultimately, I feel like it's important that you know what it is that you like, what your natural inclination is towards. So for instance, my Venus is in Aquarius. So I have a tendency for strange, not ordinary people, strange situations. So probably they're going to live somewhere else or have, it's never going to be a normal thing. It's going to be something weird. And no matter how good looking the guy is, if we can't have long conversations about really far out things, I can't do it. Because I like to talk and I like to explore with my mind and with intellectual stimulation. I like to, so I know that if the person is not able to go there with me, no matter if everything else is there, it's not going to work. And I can't lie to myself about that. So I will be upfront and honest with the person. And this is where I think knowing your Venus story, like what sign Venus is in, what other planets are nearby, I think this is going to be very, very helpful for you going into the retrograde cycle. So I'll post a link where you can pull up your chart and see what sign Venus is in. So get to know that, and then just explore what's that territory like. So when you're in conversation with either the person you already are dating or your partner or the new person that you meet, that you're able to really, really be honest about what it is that you need and not try to fit what you think they need. So the polyamory thing, which is like really coming up big, at least in Southern California, a lot of people are wanting to have open relationships and wanting to explore different ways. And I think that is so fantastic. And there's a lot of resources for that. A lot of new books have come out, and there's a lot of online forums for this. So I think that if one person is exploring that and they meet somebody who says, no, I'm not into that, I'm monogamous, don't try to, hope like, okay, well, we'll get together and I'll be monogamous with you and we'll do this thing. But if they already told you that they're into polyamory, that's, they have a pull toward or open relationships at least. Don't try to convert that person over to your values, to what you value in relationship. And also, if that person tries to convert you over to their thing, you have to really, I think it's cool to explore and be open to other possibilities if you haven't already. But if at some point you're like, okay, I am a full-grown adult, I have explored other things, I'm 100% certain this is how I want to relate, this is how I want to be in relationship, don't try to bend and reshape yourself to meet somebody else's idea. Because after 3 months, 4 months, maybe even after a year, your true longing is it's gonna be there the whole time. And so will your partners. And it would just be better if we started up from the beginning knowing what it is that you want and what the other person wants, and being really clear and honest with that. So that is a responsibility, I think, too, because you can say anything, and people often do. They'll say and do anything to have the thing that they want. It's like, talking yourself into, and not only talking yourself into it, you're also talking this other person into it. So, okay. So the retrograde is happening on the 12th, and basically Venus retrograde, what that feels like, we all know Mercury retrograde, right? Where now we're going to have slowed down computer and we're going to lose our data, and it's not a good time for, those things that they say. I don't think that. I think actually Mercury retrograde is a time to rethink, redo, revisit everything that has to do with our perception and the way that we view the world and the way that we communicate our perceptions. Because the way that you're viewing things is going to be directly the way that you express yourself and communicate. So during a Mercury retrograde, we're having a chance to rethink and revisit all of that stuff. So when Venus goes retrograde, this redoing it's really a being, being in our physical bodies and exploring what is my value? What is it actually that I value? So if you've been just going along in your relationship path, like meeting the person and then trying to fit with, how can we make this a dynamic? This is what happens, we just meet somebody and we try to mold in from there. So during a Venus retrograde, this is a time where we get to experience what it is that our body actually wants. What is it that I'm longing for? What am I attracted to? And since it's in Gemini, hopefully being really honest and clear and talking about it, communicating about it, and playfully you know, I feel like when Venus is in Gemini, we don't have to be so serious. It can be a playful, creative time of expressing our body's longing. What is it that your body wants? And does this person feed that, or not? Or do they not feed that? And you know, are you telling yourself that, oh, it's okay, I can get my own needs met, which you can, but in human love relationships, there is something that other partner is providing that you can't feed yourself. And so we want to be really clear, making sure that it is compatible and that nobody is having to compromise their own soul to fit in with this relationship dynamic that may not be the best for them. Okay, so there you go. I hope this was helpful in any kind of way. Oh, let me just take Venus through the signs really quick here too. So we're going to start off with Venus in Aries. So if your Venus is in the sign of Aries, you're going to have your longing is to be in charge. There's a sort of being, the word I'm going to say is dominating, being like, you don't want somebody to be a pushover, but you are going to win. You don't want them to let you push them over, but you are going to be more feisty, and they should also be feisty, but you need to be the one who wins. And this is, you know, in the sexual tension between you and your partner. And that's Venus in Aries. So there's a directness with that Venus position, and the values are around independence, in a word. Then we go to Taurus. Venus in Taurus, the value is around pleasure. I call this a lazy thirst trap. It's lazy and just being sexy and beautiful, and just because Taurus is the sign that's most like Venus, and it's all about pleasure, abundance, and beauty. And so taking Venus through Taurus is like double Venus. It's like whatever you would, what you consider the Venus material. So being beautiful and comfortable and well fed and well kept. All right, so then we move Venus into Gemini, where we're having this retrograde. Venus in Gemini really needs to be able to talk and have different than what I was mentioning with the Aquarius thing, because Aquarius goes really far out and is like, it wants to invent something. So there's a, you know, innovation with Aquarius. With Gemini, it's more just for fun. It's just for now. It's for the exploration of the exploring each other through talking. It's very talkative and flirty in Gemini. Then we move Venus to Cancer, where the beauty is in, or the value or the attraction, you could use any of those words, is in cooking food, being the mother archetype, whether you have kids or not, but being that nurturing, caring, empathic, sensitive kind of a lover. And then we move Venus into Leo, where Venus becomes, in Leo, the show. That's the center of attention and wanting to have all the attention. And why not? Because this is the queen. Venus in Leo is the queen. The value is around being seen and showing up in big ways. We move Venus into Virgo, where Venus becomes the priestess. The work is sacred. The details are the most important thing when Venus is in Virgo. And I feel like that, I think about the temple priestesses that were in charge of a certain type of material. And when Venus is in Virgo, I feel like it has something to do with plants, making medicine, being in love with those kind of patterns, the patterns in plants. Not just plants, but that's what the first thing that comes to my mind there. Then we move Venus into Libra, Libra being the most relational of the signs and wanting to bend to accommodate and be hospitable. This is Libra. Those are Libra traits. So we put Venus there, and the values are around relationship. Venus in Scorpio, the values here are around really feeling like if your Venus is in Scorpio, you really want to feel everything, not just the passion and the pleasure, the intensity, the pain. It's all, really wanting to feel it all. And I often will just think of belly dancing, like moving energy through the body and having that emotion be expressed in sensual ways. So the value for that, for Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio, is intensity. Then we move Venus to Sagittarius, where the value is learning, wanting to expand consciousness and travel. Venus will spend in Sagittarius will spend money on trips, and because it wants to learn and grow the philosophy for life. And then we move Venus to Capricorn, where the value is on sustainability and building an empire, building a platform to support the self, but also, whatever it is in love with, like whatever. Most likely what I'm seeing now, Venus in Capricorn wants to build a marriage and have a sustainable partnership that includes the home. It's like, let's get a 401k together and buy a house together. That's Capricorn's love language, really is about money and, having that stability. Venus in Aquarius. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I think I've mentioned this twice now. So Venus in Aquarius, the value is on cosmic consciousness, like how far out can we go, and really being able to be weird and be unique and we've covered that. So Venus in Aquarius, the value is on intellectual stimulation. Then moving Venus into Pisces, where the value is on empathy, universal love and compassion. So if you have Venus in Pisces, likely you're drawn to relationships where either you might even bond over doing service, like community service. You might have met them there, or you might bond in that situation where you're working toward a common goal that has to do with serving in a universally loving way. So that's Venus through the signs. And that's it. So I wish you a wonderful retrograde season that lasts properly until the 29th of July, when Venus reaches 21 Gemini again. So thank you, and feel free to ask any questions, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.